The gold-rimmed light of sunset filtered through the windows of Manhattan's most beloved public library, casting a warm glow over the worn paperback that Ryan Drake held in his calloused hands. His daughter Lily, with her gap-toothed smile and untamed curls, sat nestled in his lap, her eyes wide with wonder as he gave each character in The Velveteen Rabbit a distinct voice. In the shadowy corner of the children's section, Dahlia Avery, the 34-year-old CEO of Avery Innovations, stood frozen, her coffee forgotten in her hand, captivated not by the multi-million-dollar acquisition meeting she'd just escaped, but by the tenderness with which this stranger's deep voice brought a tattered children's book to life. Ryan didn't notice the elegantly dressed woman watching them. His focus remained entirely on his 6-year-old daughter, whose delighted giggles were the only currency that mattered to him at the end of a 14-hour workday. The library was their sanctuary, a warm place to visit before heading back to their small apartment where the heat sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. It was their ritual every Tuesday and Thursday after he picked her up from the after-school program, and before he started his night shift cleaning offices in Midtown. "Again, Daddy. Do the rabbit voice again," Lily demanded, her small finger pointing to an illustration on the page. "We're almost at the end, Lil Bug," Ryan said, his voice gentle but tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his smile remained bright for his daughter. "I've got to get to work soon." Dahlia couldn't help but eavesdrop. Something about the man's dedication struck her. Here was someone who clearly had little, yet gave everything. In her world of mergers and acquisitions, such genuine displays of affection were rare commodities. 5 more minutes. The little girl pleaded, her bottom lip jutting out in a well-practiced pout. Ryan checked his watch, an old timepiece that had belonged to his father, and nodded. 5 more minutes, but then we really have to go." Dahlia found herself smiling, remembering how her own father had never had time for bedtime stories. Charles Avery had built an empire, but he'd constructed walls between himself and his daughter in the process. Watching this father and daughter, something stirred inside her, a longing she couldn't quite name. As Dahlia finally forced herself to leave, her driver holding the door to her sleek Bentley, she found herself wondering about the man with the kind eyes and the little girl who hung on his every word. She wondered, too, why she couldn't stop thinking about them long after her car had pulled away from the curb. The next Tuesday found Dahlia back at the library, pretending to browse business journals while actually watching for the father-daughter duo. She told herself it was simple curiosity, perhaps even research for the foundation she chaired, which supported underprivileged families. But deep down, she knew there was something more drawing her back. Ryan arrived with Lily right on schedule, the little girl skipping ahead to the children's section while he followed, carrying her small backpack along with his worn leather satchel. Today, he wore faded jeans and a blue flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Dahlia noticed a small bandage wrapped around his left hand. "Daddy hurt his hand fixing Mrs. Peterson's sink," Lily announced loudly to the librarian who greeted them. "He's a super fixer, but sometimes he gets owies." Dahlia smiled behind her magazine. The librarian, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, nodded seriously at the child. "Well, thank goodness your daddy is brave enough to keep fixing things even when he gets owies," the librarian said. "I fix stuff," Ryan explained with a self-deprecating shrug. "Plumbing, electrical, whatever needs doing. It's side work when I can get it." Dahlia watched as they settled into what was clearly their usual spot, a small alcove with a worn but comfortable-looking chair. From her vantage point, she could see Ryan's face clearly as he read, the way his expression became animated, his eyes crinkling at the corners when his daughter laughed. There was something so genuine about him that Dahlia found herself drawn in, forgetting the quarterly reports she'd brought to review. When Ryan checked his watch and began packing up, Dahlia made a split-second decision. She approached them just as they were about to leave. "Excuse me," she said, her voice more hesitant than it ever was in boardrooms where she commanded respect with a single glance. "I couldn't help overhearing earlier. You fix things." Ryan looked up, momentarily surprised by the well-dressed woman addressing him. Yes, madam. Handyman work, mostly. Daddy can fix anything, Lily declared proudly, clutching her father's hand. Dahlia smiled at the child before returning her attention to Ryan. I have some repairs needed at my house. Nothing major, but I've been having trouble finding someone reliable. It wasn't entirely a lie. The Manhattan penthouse did have a leaky faucet, though normally her building manager would handle such things. But something compelled her to create this connection, this reason to see him again. Ryan hesitated, clearly assessing whether this unexpected opportunity was legitimate or if there was some catch. I'd be happy to take a look. I can give you my number. Perfect, Dahlia said, perhaps too quickly. She pulled out a business card, sleek, minimalist, with just her name and contact information, and handed it to him. Text me when you're available and we can arrange a time. Ryan accepted the card, his eyes widening slightly as he read the embossed text. Miss Avery, Dahlia, please, she insisted. Dahlia, he repeated, and something about the way her name sounded in his deep voice made her stomach flutter. I'm Ryan Drake, and this is my daughter, Lily. It's lovely to meet you both officially, Dahlia said, crouching slightly to meet Lily's eyes. Your dad reads beautifully. I was enjoying listening. Lily beamed. He does all the voices, even the scary ones. I bet he does, Dahlia said, straightening up and finding herself caught in Ryan's gaze, warm brown eyes that seemed to hold both wariness and kindness in equal measure. Ryan tucked the business card carefully into his wallet. I'll text you tomorrow, if that's all right. I need to get Lily home and then head to my night job. Of course, Dahlia nodded, suddenly feeling foolish for interrupting their evening. I look forward to hearing from you. As they parted ways, Dahlia returned to her waiting car, her heart beating faster than it should have been. Her assistant had scheduled back-to-back meetings for the entire next day, including a crucial presentation to investors, but all she could think about was a text message from a handyman she'd just met. Ryan, meanwhile, tucked Lily into the worn but clean back seat of his 15-year-old Honda, buckling her in securely before climbing into the driver's seat. The business card felt like it was burning a hole in his wallet. Avery, the name was familiar, but he couldn't place it immediately. It wasn't until he was dropping Lily off at his neighbor's apartment before his night shift that it clicked. Avery Innovations, he murmured to himself as he drove toward Midtown. The tech company. The realization made him uneasy. What would someone like Dahlia Avery want with a handyman like him? He'd seen her type before, wealthy, powerful people who sometimes got their kicks by slumming it with working-class folk like him, treating regular people like exotic specimens. He dealt with condescension from clients before, rich people who spoke to him as if his manual labor somehow indicated a lack of intelligence. But there had been something in Dahlia's eyes, a genuine interest, maybe even a touch of vulnerability that didn't fit with his preconceptions. As he parked and grabbed his cleaning supplies from the trunk, Ryan decided he would text her tomorrow as promised. If nothing else, he could use the extra money. Lily's school had announced a field trip to the Museum of Natural History, and the fee was more than his budget could comfortably handle. The next morning, after dropping Lily at school, Ryan composed a text message to the number on the business card. He kept it professional, offering his services and asking when might be convenient to assess the repairs needed. To his surprise, a response came almost immediately. This evening at 7. I'll be home from work by then. Address, 180 Central Park South, penthouse. Ryan stared at the address. A Central Park South penthouse. Of course. He texted back his confirmation before heading to his day job at a construction site where he was helping to renovate a boutique hotel in Soho. Throughout her day of meetings, Dahlia found herself distracted by thoughts of the evening ahead. She left the office earlier than usual, something that caused her assistant to do a double take, and spent more time than necessary considering what to wear for what was essentially a business meeting with a handyman. She settled on dark jeans and a simple cashmere sweater, still elegant, but less intimidating than her usual power suits. At precisely 7 o'clock, her doorman called up to announce Ryan's arrival. When he stepped off the private elevator into her penthouse foyer, Dahlia was struck by how out of place, and yet perfectly composed he seemed. He wore clean work clothes, khaki pants, and a forest green Henley shirt under a worn leather jacket, and carried a metal toolbox that had seen better days. "Good evening, Dahlia," Ryan said, his voice steady though his eyes betrayed his awe as he took in the expansive living area with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "Thank you for coming," Dahlia said, leading him further into the apartment. "I know it was short notice." "Not a problem. Lily's with her grandmother tonight," Ryan explained, then seemed to immediately regret sharing the personal detail. "How old is Lily?" Dahlia asked, genuinely interested as she led him toward the kitchen. "She's 6, going on 26, Ryan answered with a fond smile. "Too smart for her own good sometimes." "She seems wonderful," Dahlia said. "You must be very proud." Ryan's face softened. "She's everything to me." Then, shifting back to professional mode, he asked, "So what needs fixing?" Dahlia showed him the leaking faucet in the kitchen, then mentioned a sticking door in the guest bathroom and a cabinet hinge that needed tightening. As he assessed each item, she was impressed by his efficiency and knowledge. He wasn't just a handyman, he understood the mechanics behind each problem. "These are all pretty simple fixes," Ryan said as he examined the cabinet. "I can take care of them tonight if you'd like." "That would be great," Dahlia said, then hesitated. "Would you like something to drink first?" "Water, coffee, wine, perhaps?" Ryan looked at her carefully, as if trying to decipher her intentions. "Water would be fine, thanks." As Dahlia fetched a glass of water, she realized how nervous she felt, a sensation so foreign it took her a moment to identify it. She, who negotiated multi-billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, was anxious around this handyman with kind eyes. Ryan accepted the water gratefully and took a long drink before setting the glass down and opening his toolbox. "I'll start with the faucet, if that's all right." Dahlia nodded and stepped back, watching as he worked. His movements were precise, his hands skilled and sure. As he leaned under the sink, the hem of his shirt rode up slightly, revealing a glimpse of toned abdomen and a thin scar that disappeared beneath his waistband. "How long have you been doing this kind of work?" she asked, trying to distract herself from staring. "All my life, really," Ryan answered, his voice slightly muffled from under the sink. "My dad was in construction. He taught me everything I know. I worked with him until he passed away 5 years ago." "I'm sorry about your father," Dahlia said softly. Ryan emerged from under the sink, wiping his hands on a rag. "Thank you. It was tough, especially since Lily was just a baby then. Her mother left right after she was born, so it's been just me raising her." The admission seemed to surprise even him, as if he hadn't meant to share so much. Dahlia was touched by his openness. "That can't be easy," she said. "Raising a child on your own," Ryan shrugged. "You do what you have to do. Lily makes it all worthwhile." There was something so genuine about his devotion that Dahlia found herself envying the little girl who clearly had her father's complete love and attention. In Dahlia's experience, such unconditional love was rare, especially from fathers who were often too busy building empires to build relationships. As Ryan moved on to fix the bathroom door, Dahlia found herself opening up as well, sharing stories about growing up as the only child of a business tycoon, about the pressure to succeed and the loneliness of privilege. Ryan listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was genuinely interested, not just being polite. By the time he finished the last repair, 2 hours had passed, and they had covered topics ranging from favorite books — he loved classic adventure novels; she preferred historical biographies — to dream vacations. He wanted to take Lily to the Grand Canyon someday, while she admitted she'd never taken a real vacation that wasn't work-related. "Everything's all set," Ryan said, closing his toolbox. "The faucet shouldn't leak anymore, the door swings freely, and the cabinet's secure." "Thank you," Dahlia said, reaching for her purse. "What do I owe you?" Ryan named a figure that seemed far too low for the quality of work and time spent. Dahlia frowned. "That's not nearly enough," she protested, pulling out significantly more cash than he'd requested. Ryan's expression hardened slightly. "I don't need charity, Miss Avery." "It's not charity," Dahlia said quickly. "It's fair compensation for excellent work, please." Ryan hesitated, then accepted the money with a nod. Thank you. He paused, then added, I should get going. I have an early start tomorrow. As she walked him to the elevator, Dahlia found herself reluctant to see him leave. On impulse, she said, I actually have a few more things around the apartment that could use some attention. Would you be available again later this week? Ryan studied her face for a moment, as if trying to determine her real motivation. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him because he nodded. I could come by Thursday evening, same time. That would be perfect, Dahlia said, relief flooding her voice. After Ryan left, Dahlia stood in her immaculate, empty penthouse, realizing it had never felt quite so lifeless as it did in the wake of his departure. She walked to the kitchen and ran the faucet, smiling at the absence of the drip that had been her excuse to see him again. Thursday couldn't come soon enough. For Ryan, the next 2 days passed in a blur of work and caring for Lily. He found himself thinking about Dahlia more often than he wanted to admit her intelligent eyes, the way she really listened when he spoke, how despite her obvious wealth, she seemed genuinely interested in his life and opinions. Daddy, you're not listening. Lily's voice broke through his thoughts as they walked home from school on Thursday afternoon. I'm sorry, Lil Bug, what were you saying? Ryan squeezed her small hand in his. I said Miss Jenkins picked me to be the tree in the school play. I have to stand really still and hold out my arms like branches. Lily demonstrated, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk with her arms spread wide, causing a businessman to swerve around her with an irritated glance that softened when he saw her serious expression. Ryan laughed and hugged her. You'll be the best tree that school has ever seen. Later that evening, after dropping Lily at his mother-in-law's apartment, the only connection to his ex-wife that remained positive in his life, Ryan headed to Dahlia's penthouse. This time, he brought not only his toolbox, but also a small potted succulent he'd picked up from a street vendor. It seemed like the right thing to do, though now, standing in the private elevator with the plant in his hand, he felt foolish. Dahlia greeted him with a warm smile that faltered slightly when she saw the plant. What's this? Just a housewarming gift, Ryan said, feeling increasingly awkward. Though I guess you've probably been here a while, so maybe not housewarming exactly. No one's ever brought me a plant before, Dahlia said, accepting it with genuine delight. Thank you, Ryan. That's very thoughtful. The sincerity in her voice eased his embarrassment. She led him inside, where he was surprised to see a bottle of wine open on the kitchen counter and 2 glasses waiting. I thought perhaps after you finish with the repairs, you might like to join me for a drink, Dahlia suggested, a hint of nervousness in her usually confident demeanor. Only if you want to, of course, Ryan hesitated. This was dangerous territory. She was clearly wealthy and powerful, while he was a struggling single father juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet. They existed in different worlds. And yet, there was something about Dahlia that called to him not her beauty, though she was certainly beautiful in her understated way, but the glimpses of loneliness he'd seen beneath her polished exterior. It reminded him of his own isolation, the way he'd focused so completely on Lily and survival that he'd forgotten what it felt like to connect with another adult. I'd like that, he found himself saying. But first, what needs fixing? Dahlia showed him a light fixture in the dining room that was flickering and a closet door that wasn't closing properly. As with the previous repairs, these were simple fixes that didn't take long. Ryan suspected they were pretexts, but he didn't mind. The money helped, and he enjoyed Dahlia's company more than he wanted to admit. When he finished the repairs, Dahlia led him to the living room where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park bathed in the golden glow of sunset. She handed him a glass of wine and settled onto the sleek sofa, gesturing for him to join her. So, Dahlia said after they'd both taken a sip, tell me more about Lily. What's she like? Ryan's face lit up as it always did when discussing his daughter. She's fearless, smart as a whip. Has this way of looking at the world that makes everything seem new and exciting. He pulled out his phone to show Dahlia photos Lily on her first day of school, Lily with chocolate ice cream smeared across her face, Lily asleep surrounded by stuffed animals. She's beautiful, Dahlia said softly. She has your eyes. And her mother's stubborn streak, Ryan added with a wry smile, though maybe that's from both of us. May I ask what happened? With her mother, Dahlia ventured carefully. Ryan took another sip of wine before answering. Shannon and I were too young, probably. We got married right out of high school because that's what everyone expected. I was working construction with my dad. She was taking classes at community college. When Lily came along, everything changed. Shannon wasn't ready to be a mother. One morning when Lily was about 3 months old, I came home from work to find a note saying she needed to find herself. He shrugged, the old pain evident in his eyes despite his casual tone. She sends birthday cards sometimes, but she's never tried to be part of Lily's life. I'm sorry, Dahlia said, resisting the urge to reach for his hand. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, Ryan acknowledged, but in some ways it was cleaner than a long, drawn-out breakdown. And Lily doesn't remember a time when it wasn't just us, so she hasn't had to deal with that loss. Dahlia nodded, understanding. My mother left when I was 8, she said quietly. Not physically, she still lived in the same house, but emotionally she checked out, started drinking, having affairs. My father buried himself in work to cope, and I was raised by a series of nannies and boarding schools. Ryan studied her face. That sounds lonely. It was, Dahlia admitted, surprised by her own candor. She rarely spoke about her childhood, even with friends. But it taught me to be self-sufficient, and it gave me drive. I was determined to build something of my own, not just inherit my father's company. And you did, Ryan said with admiration. Avery Innovations is your creation, isn't it? I looked you up, he added with a slightly embarrassed smile. Hope that's not weird, Dahlia laughed. Not at all. I would have done the same. And yes, I founded the company 10 years ago. My father thought I was crazy to leave his firm, but I wanted to focus on sustainable technology solutions rather than just chasing profit margins. That's impressive, Ryan said sincerely. What about you? Dahlia asked. If you could do anything, what would your dream be? Ryan looked surprised by the question, as if no one had asked him that in a very long time. Honestly, I'd love to have my own contracting business. Not huge, just big enough to choose my projects and set my own hours so I could be there for Lily's school events. Maybe specialize in historical renovations. There's something satisfying about restoring old buildings, preserving their character while making them functional for modern life. That sounds wonderful, Dahlia said, genuinely impressed by his passion. What's stopping you? The usual, Ryan replied with a self-deprecating smile. Money, time, the fact that I need steady income to support Lily. Starting a business is risky and she depends on me. Their conversation flowed easily after that, moving from dreams to more everyday topics: favorite films, childhood memories, places they'd love to visit. They were on their second glass of wine when Ryan's phone buzzed with a text. It's my mother-in-law, he said, checking the message. Lily's asking for me to tuck her in. I should go. Of course, Dahlia said, hiding her disappointment as they both stood. Thank you again for the repairs. At the elevator, there was an awkward moment, neither quite sure how to say goodbye. Finally, Ryan spoke. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Dahlia. Me too, she said softly. Then, gathering her courage, she added, I was thinking. The Met has a new exhibition on Renaissance architecture opening this weekend. Would you and Lily, of course, like to join me on Saturday? I thought it might interest you given your passion for historical buildings. Ryan looked surprised, then pleased. That sounds great, actually. Lily loves museums. She says they're like time machines. He hesitated. Are you sure, though, about Lily coming along? Absolutely, Dahlia assured him. I'd love to meet her properly. And so it was arranged. They would meet at the museum at 11 on Saturday morning. As Ryan descended in the elevator, he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. Was this a date? A friendly outing? Whatever it was, he found himself looking forward to it with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. Saturday dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn day in New York City. Ryan spent extra time helping Lily choose her outfit. She insisted on wearing her fancy dress, a purple velvet number that his mother-in-law had given her for Christmas, paired impractically with her favorite light-up sneakers. You look beautiful, Lil Bug, Ryan assured her as they approached the Metropolitan Museum of Art. her small hand clutched tightly in his. "Remember what I told you about Miss Dahlia? She's your friend who wants to see the old buildings with us," Lily recited. "And I have to use my inside voice and not touch anything even if it looks really, really touchable." Ryan smiled. "That's right, and if you get tired or bored, just let me know, okay? No whining." "I never whine," Lily protested with a dramatic sigh that made Ryan bite back a laugh. They spotted Dahlia waiting at the top of the museum steps. She looked different today, more relaxed in dark jeans, ankle boots, and a soft blue sweater, her usually sleek hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. Ryan felt a flutter in his chest at the sight of her, which he quickly tried to suppress. "Ryan, hello," Dahlia called, walking down to meet them. She crouched down to Lily's eye level. "And you must be Lily. I'm Dahlia. It's very nice to meet you officially." Lily regarded her solemnly for a moment before breaking into a gap-toothed smile. "I like your sweater. It matches your eyes." "Thank you," Dahlia said, clearly charmed. "I like your dress. Purple is my favorite color." "Mine too," Lily exclaimed. "And my shoes light up, see." She stomped her foot several times on the pavement, demonstrating the flashing lights in her sneakers. "Very impressive," Dahlia agreed seriously. Ryan watched their interaction with a mixture of relief and something warmer, something he wasn't quite ready to name. "Shall we head inside?" "I've got our tickets." He pulled out the tickets he'd insisted on purchasing in advance, despite Dahlia's offer to treat them. The exhibition was spectacular, a collection of architectural drawings, models, and artifacts from the Italian Renaissance. Ryan found himself engrossed in the detailed renderings of domes and archways, while Dahlia seemed to know an impressive amount about the historical context of each piece. To his surprise, Lily remained engaged longer than he expected, particularly fascinated by a scale model of a cathedral with tiny, intricate details. When Lily finally began to show signs of restlessness, Dahlia suggested they visit the Egyptian wing. "They have real mummies," she whispered to Lily conspiratorially, "and a whole temple you can walk through." Lily's eyes widened. "Real mummies, like in the movies, even better," Dahlia promised. As they wandered through the ancient artifacts, Ryan found himself watching Dahlia as much as the exhibits. She had a way with Lily, speaking to her directly and taking her questions seriously without talking down to her. It was a quality he appreciated. Too many adults either ignored children or treated them like they were stupid. After exploring the Egyptian wing and a quick tour through the arms and armor collection, Lily's request, they stopped at the museum cafe for lunch. Lily, now completely comfortable with Dahlia, chattered away about school, her friends, and her collection of rocks that she was convinced were actually dinosaur eggs. "And Daddy lets me keep them in a special box under my bed," she explained earnestly. "So when they hatch, they'll know I'm their mom." "That's very responsible of you," Dahlia said, her eyes meeting Ryan's over Lily's head, a smile playing at her lips. "I've tried explaining the geological improbability," Ryan said with a shrug, "but I've been overruled." "Sometimes belief is more important than facts," Dahlia suggested. "Exactly," Lily agreed triumphantly, not entirely understanding but pleased to have an ally. After lunch, they visited the gift shop where Dahlia insisted on buying Lily a book about Egyptian queens. "They were very powerful women who ruled entire kingdoms," she explained, and Ryan a detailed volume on Renaissance architecture despite his protests. "Consider it a thank you for all your repair work," Dahlia said firmly. Outside the museum, the afternoon had turned cool, the sky darkening with approaching rain clouds. "We should get going before it starts pouring," Ryan said reluctantly, not wanting the day to end but conscious of the weather. "Thank you for suggesting this, Dahlia. We had a wonderful time. Can Dahlia come feed the ducks with us?" Lily asked suddenly, tugging on her father's hand. "We always feed the ducks in the park after the museum." Ryan looked embarrassed. "Lily, I'm sure Dahlia has other plans. Actually, I'm completely free," Dahlia interrupted. "And I can't remember the last time I fed ducks. I'd love to join you if that's all right." Which was how Dahlia Avery, CEO of a billion-dollar tech company, found herself sitting on a park bench beside Ryan Drake, throwing breadcrumbs to eager ducks while Lily counted each one loudly. giving them names based on their coloring. "That one's Mr. Greenie," she declared, pointing to a mallard. "And the white one is Princess Feathers." "Very appropriate names," Dahlia agreed, handing Lily another piece of bread to throw. As Lily moved closer to the pond's edge, though still safely within reach, Ryan turned to Dahlia. "Thank you for today. Lily doesn't get to do things like this very often. Museums aren't usually in the budget, and when they are, I'm usually too tired from work to really enjoy them with her." "I should be thanking you," Dahlia said sincerely. "This is the most fun I've had in. Well, I can't remember how long. My weekends are usually filled with work or charity events that feel like work." "No fun for the billionaire?" Ryan asked with a teasing smile, then immediately looked horrified. "I'm sorry, that was..." Dahlia laughed. "No, you're right, there hasn't been much fun. Until today." Their eyes met, and Ryan felt that flutter in his chest again. This time, he didn't try to suppress it. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, the skies opened and rain began pouring down. "Daddy," Lily shrieked, running back to them as ducks scattered in all directions. Ryan scooped her up with one arm, using his other to pull his jacket over her head. "We need to find cover. My apartment is just 2 blocks from here," Dahlia shouted over the sudden downpour. "We can wait out the rain there." They ran through the park, Lily giggling in Ryan's arms, Dahlia leading the way. By the time they reached her building, they were all soaked through despite their efforts. The doorman raised his eyebrows at the sight of his employer dripping onto the marble floor with a bedraggled man and child in tow, but quickly arranged for towels to be sent up to the penthouse. In Dahlia's apartment, she quickly found a fluffy robe for Lily, which swallowed her whole but made her feel like a queen, and offered Ryan some dry clothes that had belonged to her father, kept for his increasingly rare visits. While they changed, she made hot chocolate, adding tiny marshmallows that she'd impulsively purchased after remembering Ryan mentioning they were Lily's favorite. The rain continued to lash against the windows as they settled in the living room, Lily contentedly sipping her hot chocolate while Ryan and Dahlia talked softly. When Lily finally nodded off, her head resting against Ryan's side, Dahlia suggested they move her to the guest bedroom. "I should get her home," Ryan said, though he made no move to wake his daughter. "The storm's still pretty bad," Dahlia pointed out. "Stay a little longer, at least until it lets up." Ryan agreed, carefully carrying Lily to the guest room and tucking her in. When he returned to the living room, Dahlia had switched the hot chocolate for wine and was sitting on the sofa, looking out at the storm-tossed park below. "She's out like a light," Ryan said, accepting the glass Dahlia offered him. "Today wore her out in the best possible way." "She's amazing, Ryan," Dahlia said softly. "You've done an incredible job raising her." "Thank you," he said, genuinely touched. "That means a lot." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the rain. Then Dahlia spoke, her voice hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you agree to come today? I know the exhibition interested you, but..." She trailed off, suddenly unsure. Ryan considered the question seriously. "Honestly, at first I wasn't sure it was a good idea. You and we come from such different worlds." He gestured around the luxurious apartment. "But there's something about you, Dahlia, something real beneath all this. I wanted to know more about that person." Dahlia felt her heart quicken. "And now I'm even more intrigued," Ryan admitted, his eyes meeting hers. "Your world may be different from mine, but you're not what I expected. The way you were with Lily today, no pretense, no talking down to her. You saw her, really saw her." "She's easy to see," Dahlia said. "She shines so brightly, like her father." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Ryan set his wine glass down and turned to face her more fully. "Dahlia, I need to be honest. I'm attracted to you, but my life is complicated. Lily will always come first, and my circumstances, I understand that," Dahlia interrupted gently. "And I admire it. I would never want to come between you and your daughter." "It's not just that," Ryan continued. "I work 3 jobs sometimes just to keep our apartment. I can't offer you fancy restaurants or exotic vacations." "Have I asked for those things?" Dahlia challenged softly. Ryan shook his head. "No, you haven't asked for anything. What I want," Dahlia said, choosing her words carefully, "is to spend more time with you. And with Lily, if that's all right. The rest." We can figure out as we go. Ryan studied her face, looking for any sign of uncertainty. Finding none, he slowly leaned forward, giving her plenty of time to pull away. Instead, Dahlia closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened, conveying all the feelings they were still learning to express. When they finally broke apart, Ryan's eyes were dark with emotion. "I should check on Lily," he murmured, his hand still cupping Dahlia's face. "Of course," she agreed, reluctantly letting him go. The storm had passed by the time Lily woke, disoriented but excited to find herself in the fancy princess bed in Dahlia's apartment. They ordered pizza for dinner, eating it at the kitchen island while Lily recounted her favorite parts of the day, the museum and the ducks now supplemented with the excitement of falling asleep in a strange place. As evening turned to night, Ryan knew they needed to head home. Lily had school the next day, and he had an early shift at the construction site. "Can we come back?" Lily asked as they prepared to leave, her book about Egyptian queens clutched tightly to her chest. Dahlia looked to Ryan, letting him answer. "If Dahlia invites us, then yes, we can visit again," he said carefully. "Consider yourselves permanently invited," Dahlia said with a smile. "In fact, I was thinking, there's a children's production of The Wizard of Oz at the community theater next weekend. Would you both be interested?" "Yes," Lily exclaimed before Ryan could respond. "Daddy, please can we go?" Ryan laughed. "I think that's a yes from both of us." At the elevator, Ryan hesitated, then leaned down to whisper something to Lily, who nodded solemnly. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Dahlia's waist in a tight hug. "Thank you for the best day," Lily said, her voice muffled against Dahlia's sweater. Dahlia felt a lump form in her throat as she hugged the child back. "Thank you for sharing it with me." After Lily stepped back, Ryan moved forward. This time their kiss was brief but full of promise. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. As the elevator doors closed on Ryan and Lily, Dahlia stood in her foyer, her fingers touching her lips where his kiss still lingered. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, her apartment didn't feel empty when she was alone in it. Instead, it felt full of possibilities. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that surprised them both with its ease. The Wizard of Oz outing led to a Sunday afternoon at the Bronx Zoo, which led to Dahlia joining them for pizza night at Ryan's small apartment, which led to Ryan and Lily helping Dahlia decorate her penthouse for Christmas, the first time she'd bothered with more than a token wreath in years. Ryan was initially self-conscious about his apartment, the worn furniture, the cramped quarters, the neighborhood that was a far cry from Central Park South, but Dahlia never seemed to notice these things. Instead, she commented on the warm colors he'd painted the walls, the clever storage solutions he'd built to maximize the small space, and the beautiful photographs of Lily that lined the hallway. Lily, for her part, quickly grew attached to Dahlia. She began saving interesting rocks from the playground to show her, and drawing elaborate pictures that Dahlia proudly displayed on her refrigerator alongside contracts and business cards. There were challenges, of course. Ryan still worked long hours, and Dahlia's schedule sometimes required last-minute trips to Silicon Valley or Tokyo. There were times when their different worlds created misunderstandings, like when Ryan bristled at Dahlia's casual suggestion that Lily might enjoy the private school where she served on the board, or when Dahlia unthinkingly paid for a round of ice cream cones without consulting him first. But they learned from each misstep, building a bridge between their worlds with patience and growing affection. Ryan came to understand that Dahlia's generosity wasn't about flaunting her wealth, but sharing the resources she had in abundance, while Dahlia learned to respect Ryan's pride and self-sufficiency, finding ways to contribute that honored his role as Lily's father and provider. 4 months into their relationship, as winter gave way to spring, Dahlia found herself facing an unexpected crisis at work. A security breach had compromised user data, and she was working around the clock to manage the fallout. For 3 days, she barely left the office, surviving on caffeine and determination. On the 4th day, just as she was about to head into yet another emergency meeting with her legal team, her assistant appeared at her door. "Miss Avery, you have visitors in the lobby." Dahlia frowned, checking her calendar. I don't have any appointments this afternoon. They're not on the calendar, her assistant said with a small smile. It's Mr. Drake and his daughter. The little girl says it's a rescue mission. Dahlia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Send them up, please. Minutes later, Ryan and Lily appeared, the latter carrying a small wicker basket covered with a checkered cloth. Ryan looked slightly embarrassed. I'm sorry to interrupt. I know you're busy, but Lily was worried about you, and honestly, so was I. You haven't been answering your phone, and we brought you a picnic, Lily announced, holding up the basket. Because Daddy says you probably haven't been eating proper food, just coffee and those yucky protein bars. Dahlia laughed, tears unexpectedly springing to her eyes. You're absolutely right. I haven't been taking very good care of myself. She led them to a small conference room with a view of the city, where Lily proudly unpacked the basket sandwiches carefully cut into heart shapes, sliced fruit, homemade cookies, and a thermos of soup that was still warm. Daddy made the soup, but I helped with the cookies, Lily informed her seriously. And I cut the sandwiches all by myself. They're perfect, Dahlia said, genuinely touched by the simple meal that somehow meant more to her than any five-star restaurant experience ever had. As they ate together, Dahlia felt the tension of the past few days melting away. Lily chattered about school and her latest art project while Ryan quietly observed Dahlia, his eyes concerned. You look exhausted, he said softly when Lily became distracted by the view from the window. It's been a rough few days, Dahlia admitted, but I'm okay. Are you? Ryan pressed gently. Because you don't have to handle everything alone anymore, not if you don't want to. Dahlia's throat tightened at his words. All her life, she had prided herself on her independence, on never needing anyone. But looking at Ryan and Lily, this small family that had somehow become so important to her in such a short time, she realized that needing people wasn't a weakness. It was what made life worth living. Thank you, she whispered, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. For the picnic, for checking on me, for everything. Ryan turned his hand to entwine his fingers with hers. Always. That evening, after the crisis had been contained and solutions implemented, Dahlia left the office at a reasonable hour for the first time in days. Instead of returning to her penthouse, she directed her driver to Ryan's apartment in Queens. She found them in the small living room, Ryan helping Lily with her homework at the coffee table. They looked up in surprise when she knocked, Lily running to the door to let her in with an excited shriek. You came, the little girl exclaimed, throwing her arms around Dahlia's waist. I did, Dahlia agreed, hugging her back. I missed you both. Ryan rose from the couch, his expression warm. We missed you too. Later, after Lily was tucked into bed, Dahlia and Ryan sat close together on his worn sofa, her head resting on his shoulder as he absently stroked her hair. I've been thinking, Dahlia said hesitantly, about something you said months ago about wanting to start your own contracting business. Ryan tensed slightly beside her. What about it? I know people who restore historical buildings in the city. Good people who value quality work and craftsmanship. I could introduce you if you'd like. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Why would you do that? Dahlia sat up to look at him directly. Because I believe in you. Because you're talented and hardworking, and you deserve a chance to do what you love. She paused, then added carefully, not as a handout, Ryan, as an opportunity you've earned. His expression softened. I appreciate that, I do. But starting a business requires capital, and with Lily's needs, there are small business loans, Dahlia suggested. Grants for entrepreneurs focusing on historical preservation. I could help you navigate the applications. Ryan studied her face. You've really thought about this. I have, Dahlia admitted, because I care about you, about your dreams. Ryan pulled her close, kissing her deeply. Thank you, he murmured against her lips, just for believing it's possible. Over the following weeks, Dahlia made good on her promise, introducing Ryan to contacts in historical preservation. She helped him craft a business plan and review loan options, but was careful to let him make every decision, supporting without overstepping. Ryan, for his part, began to see that accepting help didn't diminish his independence or dignity. It was simply part of building a life together, something he found himself wanting more with each passing day. Summer arrived, bringing warm evenings perfect for walks in the park and weekends at the beach. Lily finished first grade with flying colors, proudly showing Dahlia her report card the same day she showed her father. It was during a celebration dinner for Lily's academic achievements that Ryan finally broached a subject that had been on his mind. "Dahlia," he said as they walked back from the neighborhood ice cream shop, Lily skipping ahead of them, "I've been thinking about our living situation." Dahlia's heart skipped a beat. "Oh, Lily and I have been spending almost every weekend at your place, and you're at our apartment most weeknights. It seems inefficient." Dahlia bit back a smile at his practical approach. "Inefficient, and what would be more efficient in your opinion?" Ryan stopped walking, turning to face her. "I'm not saying this right. What I mean is, I love you, Dahlia, and Lily loves you, and I hope you love us too, so maybe we should consider living together, officially." "I do love you," Dahlia said softly, "both of you so much. And yes, I'd love to live together." She hesitated. "But where? My place is bigger, but your neighborhood has Lily's school, her friends." "Actually," Ryan said, reaching for her hand, "I have an idea about that. Do you remember that brownstone in Brooklyn Heights we walked past a few weeks ago?" "The one that's being renovated," Dahlia nodded, remembering how Ryan had admired the craftsmanship of the restoration work. "The owner's looking for a contractor to finish the top-floor apartment. He offered me the job and—" Ryan took a deep breath. "He also offered us the apartment at below-market rent if I maintain the building. It's a great neighborhood, good schools, and close enough to Manhattan for your work." "Ryan, that's wonderful," Dahlia exclaimed. "Is this through one of the contacts I introduced you to?" "No, actually. It's through one of my night job clients. Turns out he owns several historical properties and has been looking for someone reliable to manage renovations." Ryan grinned. "I've given notice at the cleaning job and the construction site. Starting next month, Drake Historical Renovations will be officially in business." Dahlia threw her arms around him, laughing with joy. "I'm so proud of you. Hey, are you guys coming or what?" Lily called from ahead, hands on her hips in an impatient stance. "We're coming," Ryan called back. Then to Dahlia, "So what do you think? Brooklyn Heights, it's not a penthouse, but it's perfect," Dahlia interrupted. "Absolutely perfect." By the time autumn leaves began to fall, they were settled into their new home, a spacious 3-bedroom apartment with high ceilings, original crown molding, and windows that filled the rooms with light. Dahlia had sold her penthouse with no regrets, keeping only the things that truly mattered to her and delighting in creating a home that reflected all three of them. Ryan's business was growing steadily, his reputation for quality work and respect for historical integrity earning him projects throughout the city. He'd hired 2 workers and was considering adding a third, allowing him to set his own hours and be home for Lily after school most days. Dahlia continued to lead Avery Innovations, but with subtle changes to her work-life balance. She was home for dinner most evenings, had delegated more responsibility to her capable executive team, and had even taken her first real vacation in years, a 2-week trip to the Grand Canyon with Ryan and Lily, fulfilling Ryan's long-held dream. It was on a crisp October evening, as they walked through Brooklyn Bridge Park after dinner, that Ryan suggested Lily run ahead to the playground. Once she was happily climbing on the jungle gym, Ryan turned to Dahlia with an unusually serious expression. "There's something I want to ask you," he said, reaching for her hand. Dahlia's heart quickened. "Okay. These past 10 months have been the happiest of my life," Ryan began. "You've brought so much joy to me and Lily. You've believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You've loved my daughter as if she were your own." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I never thought I'd find this kind of love again, the kind that makes me a better man, a better father." He dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a vintage ring with a modest but beautiful diamond. "Dahlia Avery, will you marry me and make our family official?" Tears sprang to Dahlia's eyes as she nodded, too overcome to speak for a moment. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes, of course I will." As Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, a delighted shriek announced Lily's discovery of what was happening. She ran full speed toward them, launching herself at both of them in an enthusiastic hug. "Does this mean Dahlia will be my mom?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Ryan looked to Dahlia, who knelt to meet Lily at eye level. "I would be honored to be your mom, Lily," Dahlia said, her voice thick with emotion. "If that's what you want. I'll never try to replace your birth mother, but I promise to love you with all my heart for the rest of my life." Lily considered this solemnly, then nodded. "I think I'd like having a mom, especially if it's you." As the three of them walked home hand in hand, Dahlia reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her here. 1 year ago, she had been a successful but lonely woman, defined by her work and her wealth. Now, she was part of something far more precious, a family built on love, respect, and the kind of everyday magic found in bedtime stories read aloud by a father who would do anything for his daughter. In the golden light of a perfect autumn evening, Dahlia squeezed the hands of the man and the little girl who had changed her life, grateful beyond words for that moment in the library when she'd first heard Ryan's voice bringing a children's book to life, not knowing then that she was falling in love with the very thing she had always been searching for, a place to belong.